of the Arab League, Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, very moderate, the Gulf states and so on. These states that don't exactly have a sterling human rights record, they don't exactly represent their own peoples very well, in a sense have very similar foreign policy goals to Israel. They're all concerned about Iran. They're all concerned about Islamic fundamentalism undermining their regimes, including Saudi Arabia. They're concerned about the Palestinians. I think they're all afraid of the Palestinians. Partly because the Palestinians represent not only kind of a revolutionary resistance fervor that these countries don't exactly welcome in their own countries, but the Palestinians are very proud of their democratic traditions. The Palestinians have held the most democratic elections ever in the Middle East, that even trump Israeli democratic elections. And again, I don't think that's especially appreciated by most of the members of the Arab League. The members of the Arab League actually appreciate Israel's military might. After all, if Israel's military can be at their disposal, that really adds to their power. I would think, maybe it's not fair to say, but I'll say it anyway. Nobody can fire me. Probably the dream of the Syrian chief of staff, or the Jordanian chief of staff of the army, or the Egypt, or whoever, is to fly in an American F-16 before he retires. In other words, these are all regimes that worship military power, and who has more prowess with the most cutting-edge weaponry than Israel? And Israel has that special relationship with the United States. So I would even go further and say the Saudi initiative is not only an invitation kind of to Israel to join the Middle East, it's almost a plea. What the Saudi initiative is saying, what the Arab League is saying is, we want you to join our region. We want you to be a regional power. We need you to fend off all these other forces that are threatening our regimes. But we can't do it as long as you have this occupation. This occupation is messing things up because, regardless of how they treat their own peoples, they can't ignore completely public opinion. So what they're saying to Israel is, look, we can't get past this occupation and integrate you as a regional power in the region, as a regional power here that we'd like to, until somehow we get rid of this damn occupation. And I think that that's part of the thrust that I'll talk about in a second behind what's called the Annapolis process. And that is trying to get past the occupation, because Israel itself now sees a much bigger agenda. Let's say for the last 35 years or so, from 67 into the early 2000s, making the occupation permanent. In other words, integrating what we call Judea and Samaria. We don't use the word West Bank in Israel. We use the biblical term Judea and Samaria. Integrating Judea and Samaria into Israel, making the occupation permanent through settlements and so on, was the Israeli agenda. All of a sudden, a bigger agenda emerged. Because not only were the Arabs, the Arab countries, kind of reluctantly willing to accept us, they really wanted to accept us into the region. All of a sudden, Israel had an open invitation to become the regional power of the Middle East that it would like to be. And all of a sudden, this occupation is peanuts. Who needs Judea and Samaria where you can have hegemony over the wider Middle East? So I think Israel wants to get rid of the occupation, but it's hoisted itself on its own petard. And that is that it's created what I call a matrix of control that prevents it from doing so. So Israel's stuck. Not as tragically as the Palestinians, but Israel's stuck between these two kinds of needs. The need on the one hand become, the desire to become a regional power, but the difficulty of getting past the occupation because the settlements and Israeli facts on the ground, as we call them, are so massive that no government in Israel would have a mandate to do what has to be done in order to get past the occupation. So, what Israel is doing then is moving towards, from this two-state solution, which itself is not fair, to really what can only be called apartheid. I mean, there's no other word for it. I mean, there's some harder words. There are many people, like me, who would say that apartheid understates the situation, that this is worse than South African apartheid. And there are many, many South Africans who would say the same thing. But the idea is this. Okay, look. We want to get past the occupation. We want to become a part of the region. So we need a Palestinian state. Okay, we got to somehow get rid of this occupation. And we've got another problem. And this is what Sharon recognized a few years ago when he left the Likud and set up his Kadima party just before his stroke. And that was that we can't really keep this occupation sustainable forever. In other words, there are almost 4 million Palestinians living in the occupied territories that we can't get rid of. We don't know what to do with them. You know, because we can't throw them out of the country. We tried in 1948. And one of the slogans, one of the sayings we have in Israel that you hear repeated all the time is, we never completed 1948. Now, there is a party in Israel that wants, I mean, that's in a sense a subtext of almost all the parties in Israel. That's the subtext of house demolitions. That's the subtext of a lot of stuff going on. But there's one party in Israel that says it. And that's a party that's called, how's this for a name for a party? Israel is our home. Talk about a defensive name. I mean, 60 years you have to have a party that says Israel is our home. I mean, is somebody challenging that maybe? And it's run by a Russian immigrant named Avigdor Lieberman. And Lieberman's party says outright, we have to transfer. That's the word we use for ethnic cleansing. We have to transfer the Arabs out of the land of Israel. And what he means is not simply Palestinians from the occupied territories. He means Israeli citizens of Israel who are Palestinians. The slogan for his party, and they're running in the elections now. The elections are February 10th. The slogan of his party is, no loyalty, no citizenship. In other words, the demand that Palestinian citizens of Israel be loyal to the Zionist state, become Zionists in a sense, or else get thrown out of the country. So this idea that we haven't finished 1948 is very alive. Lieberman's party is going to become the third largest party in the parliament. He's going to get more seats than the Labour Party. So we're going to have not just a right-wing government of Netanyahu, we're going to have, and there's no other word for it. I'm sorry, I don't like slogans, I don't like catchphrases, but sometimes words are appropriate. It's going to be a fascist government, an absolutely fascist. It goes beyond right-wing in what's going to happen if Lieberman comes into power. So that we can't, but still, today, we can't throw the Arabs out. Because it wouldn't look, there's no problem logistically, there's no problem morally, it's merely a PR problem. How would it look for Israel's image as a democracy to load 4 million people on trucks and ship them out to Jordan? So that's the only reason, but still, that's not right today an option. Well, the second option is to